Far below the soaring white spires of every Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saint chapel, one can usually spot a small but important sign. It reads simply, "Visitors are welcome." It is part of the uniform architecture of Mormon meeting houses, an invitation to the world, a reflection of church that prides itself on evangelism and openness. But last Sunday in Grand Blanc, Michigan, that openness became vulnerability. That invitation was turned into a weapon. A 40-year-old man rammed his pickup truck into the front of Mormon chapel, set it on fire, and then began shooting at worshippers. By the end of this rampage, at least 4 people were confirmed dead, 8 were injured, others were missing. The attacker was killed in a shootout with police. Another house of worship in America has fallen victim to gun violence. Another congregation shattered, another place of prayer transformed into a crime scene. The images are grim, a chapel reduced to rubble, black smoke rising where hymns were being sung, children and elders being rushed to safety, and amid all of this, police officers and nurses from a nearby striking hospital rushing to rescue survivors. The FBI is now investigating this as an act of target violence. And yet, the larger question is one that Americans have heard for far too often. Why are there places of worship, churches, synagogues, temples, mosques no longer safe? This was not the first such attack. A Catholic church in Minneapolis, a synagogue in Pittsburgh, a Sikh temple in Wisconsin. The list is long and unbearably repetitive. Different communities, different religion, same tragic pattern. The Grand Blanc attack happened on what is called a fast Sunday in the Mormon faith. It is the first Sunday of every month when members of the church fast for 2 meals and donate the food for its monetary equivalent to the poor. It is a day of charity, a day of reflection, a day meant for kindness, and that is precisely when the shooter struck. It was also a time of mourning. Just a day earlier, the church's global leader, President Russell M. Nelson, had died. Members were already in grief, fasting, and gathering for spiritual strength. Within 20 minutes of their service, grief turned into chaos. Survivors recall this moment: a loud crash, the doors flying open, gunshot ringing. One man, his shirt stained with blood, said he was simply trying to help elderly women into his car when the bullets came. A woman named Paula said she couldn't even see the shooter, only the confusion, the sound, the surreal realization that their church was under attack. Children had to be shielded. Teachers threw themselves between bullets and the little ones. And within minutes, the chapel itself was engulfed in flames. Police say the attacker deliberately started the fire using an accelerant like gasoline. They even found suspected explosive devices at the scene. The red brick building with its white spire is now a heap of charred debris. A building that stood for nearly 4 decades, serving as a sanctuary for thousands of families, is gone. The police chief called it a total loss. So let us pause and ask, what is happening in America? Why do attacks like this keep repeating? And why are houses of worship so vulnerable? The United States has long struggled with the epidemic of mass shootings. Schools, malls, nightclubs, offices, concerts, even elementary classrooms. And yet, there is something uniquely horrific about attacks on places of worship. Because these are not merely buildings, they are meant to be sanctuaries, places where communities gather not just to worship, but to seek safety, reflection, and healing. When violence enters these places, it is not only human lives that are lost, it is also the very sense of security that faith provides. The Mormon chapel in Michigan now joins a tragic club of religious sites attacked in America. Take Pittsburgh in 2018. 11 people killed at the Tree of Life synagogue, the deadliest attack on Jews in US history. The attacker was motivated by anti-Semitism. Take Charleston in 2015, 9 African American worshippers killed in Bible study at Emmanuel African Methodist Episcopal Church. The shooter was a white supremacist. Take Oak Creek, Wisconsin in 2012, a Sikh temple turned into a killing ground. 6 worshippers dead, targeted simply for their turbans and beards. Take Sutherland Springs, Texas in 2017, a small Baptist church where 26 people were killed by gunmen armed with an assault rifle. Each of these attacks is wound on America's soul. Each is a reminder that the right to bear arms has become, in practice, a license to kill. And each reveals the deep fault lines of hate, religious, racial, ideological, that extremists exploit. In Michigan, investigators are still trying to determine motive. Was it hatred of the Mormon faith? Was it personal grievance? Was it simply another man with access to guns and rage in his heart? Whatever the details, pattern is chillingly familiar. Think about it. Police found suspected explosive. This was not spontaneous, this was planned, this was deliberate, this was a man who wanted not just to kill, but to destroy. The irony could not be darker. The visitor's welcome sign outside every Mormon chapel is meant as an invitation to kindness. But for this man, it became an open door for terror. Consider also the response. Within 30 seconds, police were on the scene. Within 8 minutes, the shooter was dead. The system worked quickly, and yet 8 minutes was enough to burn a church, kill 4, injure 8, traumatize hundreds, and shatter a community forever. 8 minutes. Now compare this to other countries. How often do you hear about church shootings in Japan, or synagogue massacre in France, or temple attacks in India? These are rare, but in America it is tragically routine. The difference is not culture or religion, it is policy, it is guns. America has more civilian-owned guns than people. Over 400 million firearms for a population of 330 million. Assault rifles like the one used in Michigan are sold legally in many states. Ammunition is available in bulk, and background checks remain inconsistent. The question practically screams itself. Why does America allow this? Why does a country that prides itself on freedom fail to protect its citizens in their most sacred spaces? The answer is political. The gun lobby is powerful, laws are weak, and every time a massacre happens, politicians offer thoughts and prayers, but rarely laws and action. In fact, the irony is cruel. Thoughts and prayers are offered after people are gunned down while praying. In Grand Blanc, the congregation was in the middle of the sacrament, a central ritual of Mormon worship, where the attack began. Bread and water were being passed to symbolize the body and blood of the Christ. Within minutes, actual blood was being shed. The survivors' testimonies are harrowing. Paula says she has been a member of this church for 38 years. She picked up a friend that morning, expecting a routine Sunday. Instead, she lost her friend. Children, she taught in Sunday school, were injured. Her voice breaks as she speaks. It's devastating to know I lost friends. Another survivor, Brian, says he wrapped his bleeding hand as he tried to drive away with elderly women in his car. His only thought, how many more were still inside? The police chief himself admits that some victims may have been too close to the fire, unable to escape. Imagine that horror. Trapped inside a burning church, bullets flying, smoke rising, unable to get out. This is not simply tragedy, this is terror. And the ripple effects are vast. The LDS community is global, 17 million members worldwide. News of this attack has shaken them deeply. Already mourning their leader, they must now confront the reality that one of their chapels has been turned into ashes. The symbolism is painful. The white spire, meant to reach heaven, a beacon of faith, now toppled. The building is gone. The community is scared. So what lesson can we draw? First, that America's gun crisis is not confined to schools or streets. It has now fully invaded sacred spaces. Second, the religious minorities remain especially vulnerable, whether Jewish, Hindus, Black Christians, or Mormon or Sikhs. Congregation faces not just random violence but targeted hate. Third, that the cycle will not end until laws change, and so far laws are not changing. Some will argue that security should be increased at churches, synagogues, and temples. Metal detectors, armed guards, locked doors. But ask yourself, should places of prayer resemble prisons? Should worshippers have to pass through checkpoints to reach their God? The very idea undermines what faith communities stand for. A church is meant to be open, not fortified. A temple is meant to be welcoming, not barricaded. And yet, America seems to be leaving them no choice. The Michigan attack forces another reckoning. The attacker was killed quickly, but the damage was already done. Lives lost, families shattered, a community displaced, and another mark added to the long ledger of America's mass shooting history. Think again about the irony. A day of fasting meant for charity, a congregation mourning its leader, a community gathered for peace, and in that moment, violence arrived. The question is no longer if another attack will happen. The question is where, when, and against whom. Until America confronts its gun crisis honestly, without politics, without lobbyists, without excuses, houses of worship will remain vulnerable, communities will remain afraid, and tragedies like Grand Blanc will remain inevitable. In the words of one survivor, and I quote, "It feels inevitable, and all that more tragic because of that." Inevitable? That is the most damning word of all, because violence should never feel inevitable, not in schools, not in streets, not in homes, and certainly not in houses of God. But for now, in America, it does. Thank you for watching. I'm Shubham. Until next time.